Halo 1 is my favorite game of all time. It encapsulates everything that gaming means to me, with its atmosphere, combat, and world. The first time I played Halo 1 evoked a sense of wonder and excitement that has been unparalleled by any other game since for me, and I'll never forget exploring the dark, snowy cliffs of Two Trails, or the insides of a Covenant starship in Truth and Reconciliation. I've played the game many times, and while I've grown to appreciate certain aspects of Halo through repeat playthroughs, that sense of mystery and scale has never quite returned to me. That is until I played a fan-made mod for Halo PC called SPV3. Everything from the graphics, enemies, weapons, vehicles, and level design have been drastically changed or altered from the original to create an impressively new experience, considering it's still running off of a game created 17 years ago. Overall, it's an experience that I feel elated to have played. SPV3 is not without faults. The Flood are still pretty bothersome to fight, and while the inclusion of new types of Flood is nice from a visual sense, none of these new enemy types provide a new way to fight the Flood. The new Floods still mindlessly run at you head-on, just as they did back in Halo 1, and I can't help but be frustrated by it. They had a perfect opportunity to fix the main problem with Halo 1's second half by making the Flood a more dynamic and varied enemy faction, and yet they're just as bland as ever. This is in stark contrast to the Covenant faction, who have received even more inclusions that make it truly great. This entire problem would be excusable for a mod if SPV3 didn't make one crucial blunder. The mod dramatically overhauled the amount of enemies you fight at a time, with little regard for the difficulty or how it affects gameplay. Halo games have never been easy on heroic or legendary difficulties, but that's because they're the harder difficulties, meant for more experienced players. Easy and normal modes have always been available for less experienced players. However, SPV3's normal difficulty is significantly harder than any other game's normal difficulty in the series, and with no easy option available, even I, a relatively good player who frequently plays all the Halo games on heroic without much problems, was struggling to progress at points. This issue is more widespread than it may seem because it disincentivizes the player from using certain strategies in combat. There are sections in some of the levels that are just too hard to beat without playing like a degenerate and shooting everything from range behind cover like a little wimp. This playstyle should be an option, of course, however, it should never be the only correct option. If they had toned down the number of enemies you fight at a time, or made the enemies less threatening, the biggest fault of this mod would be mostly fixed. This is really annoying because Halo 1 never had this issue. Enemies were balanced, and you could take on pretty much any enemy with any weapon, save for, say, the Sentinels with a pistol or something like that. Human weapons didn't really work on them, but still, this game has it much worse. You know, despite all these complaints, I simply adore this mod. You can tell the designers really cared about not just improving one of the greatest games of all time, but using it as a platform to create something new and exciting. There's entirely new areas, new environmental effects, new dialogue, and so much more that propels SPV3 above the meager title of mod. It might as well just be its own game. I mean, look at my second favorite mission from Halo 1, Truth and Reconciliation. SPV3 introduces a new rendition of the iconic canyon, a silent sniper, several different secondary weapon options, and armor abilities all in the opening section of the level. Not to mention the reimagined music, which is just phenomenal. That's why SPV3 is so great. It retains the general formula and setting of Halo 1, while expanding on everything else, while introducing new mechanics and concepts never before seen in a Halo game, such as a low-gravity area or dark rooms where you need to use explosives to briefly illuminate the enemies lurking within. While it's far from perfect, I cannot recommend Halo SPV3. Also, PS, playing Halo with a mouse and keyboard is legitimately one of the best things ever.